2 years.
Good evening. I shouldn't be smiling because tonight I'm going to talk about crime and punishment. Crime in Surrey and punishment across the country. But first, here's Ted with a rundown.
Tonight on Webster, is the parole system a soft touch for prisoners? Prison activist and prisoners' right advocate Claire Culhane says it's too hard, and she's up later with Webster. The fastest growing industry in Surrey is breaking and entering. It's netting almost $1 million a month, and that's giving the insurance companies a major headache. Coming up with Webster, tales of civic woe from Surrey alderman Bonnie Schrenk, and a spokesman for the Insurance Bureau of Canada. But first, keep the law. That's the motto on the shield of the RCMP. But with Surrey's break and enter rate on a steady upswing, the police are finding it hard just to keep up. Surrey Council has approved 8 additional RCMP officers to the present detachment strength of 231. But for one of the largest municipalities in Canada, the few extra police will be like applying a small band-aid to a serious civic wound.
And where are you phoning from?
In the Surrey RCMP Communications Centre, between 1,500 and 2,000 calls are handled each day. In the past 10 years, Surrey's population has grown from 120 to 180,000. And while the police strength has increased nominally, the crime rate has exploded.
Portable Bravo 19, Surrey. Simple, we got a B&E in progress in Zone 3.
In 1986, Surrey RCMP logged 5,915 incidents of break and enter, the highest rate for 57 municipalities surveyed in Canada. Any idea what the average break and enters per day you receive out in Surrey?
I think during 1986, for the whole calendar year, they averaged out to about 16.2 per day.
That's pretty high for 180,000 people.
That's right.
Shortage of officers isn't the only problem at the RCMP detachment. More crimes result in more paperwork, and the backlog means some corners have to be cut.
We're cutting the areas that are very high volume, for instance, theft from auto, which we run sometimes 20 a day, and with a very low success rate. There's very seldom that we get a successful ident by examining that car at the scene. So we've cut those out. We've cut out some of the assaults, some of the theft of auto, because they have a fairly low success rate and they're high volume cases.
Figures from Surrey for 1986 show total crimes per 1,000 residents at 156. As a resident of Surrey, you face a 3% chance of being the victim of a B&E, or 33 out of every 1,000 population. And for Surrey Police, where the average caseload is 121 per officer, the ratio of police per resident is 1 for every 780. What about morale?
Basically, I would say that the members' morale here is good. I think that the thing that does discourage them and probably affects their morale is the fact that they don't have time to provide the service to the public that they feel that we should be supplying.
You're not getting the 28 that you asked for. You get the 8. They won't be on strength probably till the end of this year, the end of 87. How is that going to help your force?
Well, it'll just help us to tread water.
And here's a woman who has been on Surrey Council in her 14th year now, Bonnie Schrenk, and you lost the battle, did you not? How many policemen did you want to get added to the Surrey detachment?
Superintendent Strathdee wanted 28. I felt that another 8 on top of the 8 we hired on Monday night would have been sufficient.
16 would have been sufficient?
Yes.
How bad is it? When you look at these statistics, you know, they just become a little bit horrifying, but tell me, how bad is it?
It's bad, Jack. The B&Es are, you know, close to 6,000 a year. You have 10,000 thefts on top of the B&Es. And then you have all the other serious crimes, the car thefts and such that are going on. People don't realize in Surrey they've got to lock their doors, Jack, or they're going to lose their gold teeth and everything else in the house one night.
Well, you haven't got any cat burglars.
Yes, we do.
Oh.
We have one responsible for 30 B&Es recently. He goes in the homes between 1 o'clock and 6 a.m. in the morning, and he goes right into the bedrooms, lifts out the wallet out of dad's trousers, mom's purse goes walking, the VCR, TV, anything that he can get his little hands on. And this kid's around 16 years of age.
Tell me, but he hasn't been nailed yet?
No.
Now, the average value of the stolen property a month is how much?
$950,000. It ranges between $750,000 to $950,000 a month. And Jack, when you look at that in property damage and the increase in the insurance rate, my feelings were that to get 8 extra officers, which wouldn't arrive till the end of this year or January of 1988, that's $430,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And I feel in a growing municipality, second largest in Canada of 183,000, that we can well afford, Jack, to have those extra police officers.
132 square miles to cover?
Yes.
How many police in the detachment, I forget?
239 now.
I see here too that even the Surrey dog squad is overworked.
Yes, and of course if you have to have the other night, for example, they had an armed robbery in the Dairy Queen. They had to go in there with the dogs and try to track this guy down. He had parked his car in the Surrey Memorial Hospital parking lot and got away. But you need dog strength fast in a situation like that, and the cars have got to be nearby. You must have manpower.
One thing you can straighten up for me, it says 6,000 B&Es in 1986, 16.2 a day. And then you said 10,000 thefts a year. What kind of thefts are these? You're not talking about theft from autos.
No, Jack, this is theft that takes place if you have a nice electric barbecue in your backyard, or you have a boat motor, or tools in the carport or alongside the home. So it's theft that doesn't require you to enter through a window or a door of a home.
Well, you're hardly the best public relations officer for investing in Surrey real estate at the moment. Is it as grossly bad as to be visible?
It is as bad as the statistics show. It is bad. The real estate people, Jack, have been very helpful. They have the real estate board holds seminars. They have block watch.
Well,
they're
what
doing
about
everything
block watch?
possible. Well, block watch is on has a possibility of being scrapped by Surrey Council right now for not funding it. It's the only positive tool that we have in the municipality to give the RCMP to get into the homes and into the areas. It's very successful. There's a debate on council whether or not they want to fund that or a Surrey Crime Prevention Society.
Haven't you got a block watch now?
We have a block watch now, but it's under the review of council. We don't know whether it will be funded or not within the next week.
Now, is there any move by the provincial government to replace the Mounties with a provincial force? The Lord, well, maybe not the Lord forbid. I don't know that I have an opinion on it.
Well, Jack, the Deputy Attorney General has written to all municipal councils in British Columbia asking them to give comment on their police forces, whether they be RCMP, municipal. They've asked them to comment on what they think are the problems, what they'd like to see in the future. There is a possibility of that going to happen. It's under review.
There's the federal subsidy for the RCMP. What proportion does the municipality pay and the province and the federal government?
Okay, the municipality right now pays 87% of the contract. The rest is paid by the federal government for RCMP. Mm-hmm. Now that contract runs out in 1991, and at that time we come into 100% cost. Our RCMP force will cost us $14,800,000 in Surrey in 1986. Mm-hmm. That's a 9.1% up from 1985.
Have many of your friends' homes been broken into?
Yes, there's been a few, Jack, and it's a very traumatic experience. You go in vacation, you think everything's safe and the neighborhood's sort of looking after the home, and you get a call and you're down in the States somewhere, your home's been being needed, your vacation is wrecked. You're not at peace for the rest of your vacation, so you come home. Elderly people, once they've been B&E'd, there's a traumatic experience. They don't feel safe in their homes anymore.
Well, what is it? Have you got more thieves and burglars per square inch in Surrey than elsewhere, or is it because of the widespread location?
No, the problem is this, Jack. We have a young, growing population, a lot of younger families. We've got more of a demographics of teenagers. A lot of the B&Es are attributed to younger juveniles, okay? We have 25 to 30 gangs operating, the RCMP told me today, that are juvenile gangs operated by older peers. They get the kids to B&E and then they fence the goods. For example, these children, some of them don't know the value of goods. The fence will give them $50 for a VCR and sell it for $200. And
well, somebody's buying them.
That's right. average
Well,
Joe
you
citizen,
know,
I guess.
If I didn't know better, I would say, is there a general breakdown in morality about the ownership of property in Surrey?
Other municipalities have B&Es too.
But you're the best.
Well, we're
You're leading the
top of the pack. You're
Insurance now too. A number of people being two people have phoned me to complain that they're fearful that they might not be able to get proper insurance again. And in specific relation to Surrey and elsewhere, I have a guest on that very topic, Brian Stanhope of the Insurance Bureau of Canada, who will answer our questions on that with Bonnie Schrenk after the break.
Bonnie, it happened to me.
Are you going to question him or am I going to question him? With me now is Brian Stanhope, who is the Regional Vice President of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. I had a phone call from a guy myself too the other day saying it had a break-in, not too bad, second break-in, third break-in. His agent told him, hey, you're not getting any more insurance. Now, could that be true? Can I not always get insurance regardless of where I live and how I live?
Well, it depends on a number of factors. Where break-ins are concerned, yeah, it's always possible to buy the insurance. However, the terms that the insurance company may impose on you may be a little different than you've been used to in the past. And those terms won't last forever, but they will be certainly more restrictive than you've been used to.
All right, if I have 3 or 4 break-ins in Surrey, and 3 is not unusual, is it, Bonnie?
Some residents have suffered that much, but it's...
What happens to my coverage?
Well, in the first instance, the insurance company will try and get rid of you. That's the very first thing that they'll do.
You mean just say, go away, I don't want your business anymore?
Go and find another insurance company. We don't want a bad risk like that. Go find somebody else.
That's if it's a big claim.
No. What insurance companies hate most of all is being nickeled and dimed to death. They can handle the big claims. The big claims are not a big problem with insurance companies. It's the nickel and dime claims, the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 claims, and those in quick succession. I had a case true in Surrey not very long ago where they had 4 losses, all of which were roughly $4,000 apiece. 2 fires, 2 burglaries. You don't know what the hell to do when you see those people.
I mean, if you don't renew my insurance, my mortgage is invalid. I haven't got a mortgage on my house.
No, we would provide you, all the insurance companies will indeed provide you with fire insurance. Their initial reaction is, look, you're a bad risk, Jack Webster. Go away, go and find another insurance company to take their lumps. But after a while, you'll find that you're not able to do that. So ultimately, you have to go back to the original insurance company. And they will say, well, okay, but our terms are such and such for the next year or so. Don't be hurt by it. It happened to me a year last November when my insurance company came to me and said, you've had 2 bicycle losses, Stanhope, go away. And I said, come on now, you're not talking to the guys in the street. But finally, I talked them into imposing some pretty restrictive terms for a year.
All right, what are these restrictive terms that can be imposed?
Well, they can vary. There can be any combination of them. It's a sort of permutation, if you like. But by and large, the insurance company will come to you and say, well, first of all, we don't want to insure any theft at all.
No theft?
No theft.
That's not a B&E, that's theft.
That's a theft, pure theft. The next thing is, a little milder than that, they might come to you and say, okay, we'll just provide the B&E coverage and we won't give you the broad theft coverage because we get a lot of what Bonnie was talking about, you know, the barbecues and the bicycles and so on and so forth. In that event, if still they may compromise and they still may come to you and say, okay, well, we will provide you with the coverage that you've been used to, except that we will bash your deductible and we will raise your deductible for a year or 2. And that may be anywhere up to $5,000.
That would be a deductible on burglary? They wouldn't give me theft at all?
Or they wouldn't give you theft at all.
But they would always give me fire? They'll
always give you fire.
So therefore my mortgage is still protected as far as that is concerned. Yeah. Now what about Surrey itself? Do you get incredible rashes? Is Surrey, as I've been saying tonight with gay abandon, the worst?
Not from my perspective. I've handled in the past year roughly 300 of these complaints. And believe me, They haven't all come from Surrey. That should make you feel better, Bonnie.
Yes.
They haven't all come from Surrey. I mean, I get people in Kerrisdale who ring me as well, believe it or not. That's a target area. There are certain, because of demographics, there are certain target areas. Those target areas may vary either because of population, age of population, or because of the attractive type of risk that it offers. And if you're talking about West 41st, that's a very attractive burglary area.
But out in Surrey, the police identification squad has stopped responding to theft of autos, theft from autos, and some assault cases. You know, and they've got 6,000 burglaries in 1986, 10,000 thefts a year. Nobody can match that.
You're probably right. I can tell you the last figures that we have for break and enters and thefts in general on home policies, I'm not talking about automobiles now, but in home policies, show that in 1985, our insurance companies, our member insurance companies in BC in total, paid $36.5 million out in thefts. Now, in Alberta, which only has a half a million, less population, fewer people than we do, they only had 11.6 million.
So therefore, if you're an insurance company, do business in Alberta and try and avoid BC. But of course, you put the premiums up to the sky, I should imagine.
We'd love to.
Well, don't you?
Of course we don't. We can't do that. That's not in the public interest. Can you imagine the outcry? I'd be on your show again next week.
What do you mean not in the public interest? Your public interest is to get as much profit as you can on your insurance dollar. Or are you under control?
No, our public interest is to pay claims as and when they come due and to pay as the least amount that we have to within the terms of the policy.
Yeah, but you don't come under any government controls about your rates, do you?
No.
No. You just have to report to the Superintendent of Insurance.
Yeah, we've never had to, fortunately. What we would do in a hurry if we started bashing the premiums.
Yeah, they look after you quickly.
We don't do that.
So you say, we do the best we can. We will put you down as a bad risk. We'll try not to renew you. Or we'll renew you on different terms. We don't want to be too bitted to death. We might say, OK, we'll cover you for burglary, but not for theft. And we might give you a $5,000 deductible on burglary after you've had one claim or two claims?
Oh, no. It'd have to be three or more.
2 or 3 claims. So you're not concerned about it?
Of course we're concerned about it, but we're not concerned about it in Surrey in particular. We're concerned about it in BC as a whole.
What are people doing wrong? Apart, I mean, you told me 25, 30 gangs in Surrey, teenagers, perhaps under adult control.
Jack, they have got to, number one, lock their homes, please, at night. Make sure that the neighborhood does join Block Watch. If you don't have Block Watch in your neighborhood, phone the RCMP and get it there. And I do think the Insurance Bureau of Canada, if it's that bad in BC, should help do some corporate sponsorships of some Block Watch programs in bad areas. And, you know, we pay a lot for, you know, municipal insurance, all the districts and various corporations, so I don't think that's unreasonable to ask for that.
She's putting the arm on you now.
That's right.
Not on the air.
Anyway, now
that's another program.
Now it's the turn of the callers to put the arm on both of them. I'm glad I've got Brian Stanhope here from the insurance industry, or is it profession?
Oh, profession would be nice.
And Bonnie Schrenk, the indomitable fighter for 13 years in council, who's mad at her colleagues for not going for 16 officers instead of 8, correct?
Would have helped. Would have helped, Jack.
After the break. Yeah, when a burglary happens to you, it's a moment of truth. Bonnie Schrenk from Surrey, Brian Stanhope from the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, I took the wrong one. My mistake. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question is to Bonnie Schrenk and the fellow from the insurance adjuster. He just stated that they were keeping insurance premiums down. Well, isn't it true that over the last year that municipal insurance policies liability have increased between 400 and 800%, and that perhaps that money could be better used for increased policing, particularly since that increase in municipal insurance was based on a case in Brandon which was recently overturned by the appeal court in Ontario.
Well, now you're mixing apples and oranges. I'm prepared to get an answer for you, but you're talking about liability insurance for public bodies, which certainly has gone up in a large way, am I right?
Oh, yes, it's fantastic. It's unbelievable. It's leveled out now. No, the problem here is that The money that we charge the municipalities, our companies charge the municipalities, goes to the insurance company and to the reinsurance companies. It's not public money.
Private money.
Yeah.
But see, Jack, now the municipalities are looking to go into self-insurance. The Union BC municipalities, it's just got to the point that we can hardly afford that insurance.
I think one of the big cities, maybe it was Vancouver, has decided to go to self-insurance,
Right.
where you raise the damage claims from the taxpayer.
Right.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. We'll go to the next call. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Alderman Schrenk, it sounds to me that there seems to be some sort of a social breakdown in Surrey. Every 6 months now, it appears someone from Surrey appears and says that there's a massive break-ins, the police won't respond, etc. But I sometimes wonder, I don't want to sound off the wall, but it seems to me that Surrey's also the municipality that spawned the first nuclear waste dump in Canada. That gentleman had that 15-year running battle. You spawned Ed McKitka, and Bill Vanderzand comes out of the same area. I don't know if some of this isn't rubbing off on the youngsters out there. I don't know what's going on with Surrey.
I don't think you're entitled to put individuals in with the problem, smart aleck though you are on occasions.
I think he was picking on us, Jack.
I think he was pulling your leg,
I think so, too.
to some extent. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello?
Oh, yeah, just a minute. Once again, I hit the wrong button. I must be a little bit off. I haven't got my glasses on, you fool. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Jack. Bonnie, has there been a feasibility study done on the cost of having our local police
Versus?
and in conjunction with having our own police force similar to Vancouver or New Westminster? We are the second largest city in population in BC and are the largest in area, and we have about 1/4 of the police force that there is in Vancouver.
That's correct. There is, the UBCM has looked into the various methods of policing and done a study on it throughout British Columbia. But even, I don't like to, you know, say anything nasty about provincial or municipal or RCMP police forces. It's a matter of the manpower strength.
What I'm referring to,
okay,
manpower.
if you brought in a municipal force at this point in time, some of them do have two-man cars, and you would require approximately $2 million more, $2 to $3 million more in our particular budget in order to accomplish that.
RCMP policing has up to now always been the cheapest policing for municipalities.
Yes,
is it
because
not?
of the
Our
cost sharing.
insurance rates and the insurance payouts would obviously compensate for this heck of an increase in our cost.
Okay, are you going to let, you can't give in money for policing?
No. Look, we're interested in the time that the burglary occurs. I mean, even if we catch the criminal, it might be 2 or 3 or 5 years before we get the goods back, if we ever get them back. And, you know, what good is it to us to have that money tied up all that time? No, we're interested in stopping them, not catching them.
And paying the claims, the proper justifiable claims, promptly paid with goodwill and a smile on your face.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's you, ma'am.
Oh, hello, Jack, and hello, Bonnie. My question is for Mr. Stanhope. I am wondering how many of the total claims are really examined for fraud. There always are a lot of fraudulent claims, and somehow they never can get them, they can never prove it.
If you want me to guess at the amount of the percentage of claims that are frauds, I'd guess about 98% of them are tried on at some time. And when I say fraud, I mean simple things like overinflating the cost of your $250 suit to $600. You see that all the time.
You are a cynic.
Oh, I am?
Yeah. You'd say almost everybody adds something on to the real costs.
It's like cheating on your income tax, isn't it? It's permissible.
Speak for yourself, Brian Stanhope. But in the meanwhile, you depreciate items anyway before you replace them.
No, we don't. Not anymore. Items are now replaced on a replacement cost basis, new for old, no deduction for depreciation. The problem that we have is that we often get 2 break-ins because the thief will wait 3 months until the insurance companies replace the stuff and go back again.
Do you mean?
It's true, Jack. That is very true. Beware if you've had one. That's why we said you can experience 2 and 3. He's warning the public.
I am
very
not
well.
laughing. I'm merely laughing at the thought of...
Listening to it through here, I don't know if I'm still on or not.
Yes, you are still on.
Oh.
But I was just laughing and saying, here's the guy with the black mask who goes in and steals your VCR and your television set and all your fancy electronic equipment, makes a note of it in his little diary, waits till they get the replacement, and then goes and does it again.
That's right.
I know, but Jack, really, did you believe that all those people...
Yeah, go on, you're on.
I really?
Yes.
Well, I don't believe that the majority of people put in fraudulent claims.
No, I said that a bit tongue-in-cheek. They don't put in fraudulent claims, but most people do tend to exaggerate the claim a little. Yeah, in fact, if we suspect a fraud, we will make sure that we examine those people in great detail. We do have a little fraud squad all of our own that looks at those people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. She was a nice woman. I don't know whether she had us or not. Go ahead from Cranbrook.
Yes, hello, Jack. I would like to dispute Mr. Stanhope's claim that insurance rates have not gone up. We've lived in our home for 9 years, and insurance rates have more than doubled, plus a $100 deductible has been imposed. And based on that, I find it very difficult to believe his statement. Thank you.
In 9 years, I'll bet the cost of a loaf of bread has gone up, too. Believe me, insurance has not gone up in the same proportion as most commodities. And you better tighten your belt a bit because your deductible is going to $200.
Everybody's deductible.
I've already been told that, but when you haven't had a claim, I can understand if there's been a claim or several claims over a period of the 9 years. However, when there has been no claim, I find it very disheartening when the rates have more than doubled and keep imposing these deductibles. I don't think it's fair.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon. I do sympathize with Surrey greatly, but I do believe it is the responsibility of the homeowner more to ensure that any valuables such as rings and jewelry are put where they're supposed to be in the bank. And second of all, to ensure that the people start to investigate in security systems and invest the money in their own property instead of running to the insurance company.
Good question, good question. If I have a decent alarm system, will that protect my insurance rates?
Well, let's put it this way. If you have a good alarm system, you'll have a lot more choice of insurance companies, and there'll be a lot more competition for your premium out there. Make no mistake about that.
But what does an alarm system cost, Bonnie?
Good one, $4,000 to $5,000.
I just had one installed for $1,300 in it, and it'll protect my house for a long time.
But it doesn't go anywhere else. It merely creates a fuss.
No, it doesn't, Jack. It's monitored 24 hours a day with a fire alarm too. And as soon as it goes off, I have 2 trucks come to my house, and including the police.
That's a good man. Thanks for your. What do you say?
Can I ask a question? What's your monthly maintenance cost on that?
$25 a month.
That's very reasonable.
And that includes 24 hours with the fire alarm as well.
Jack, I'd sure like to know the name of that firm because we're going to have a seminar on the 31st at the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board
with alarm
companies.
Is it your firm, sir?
Pardon?
Is it your firm?
It's not my private firm, but I'm using a reputable company in the Vancouver area.
Okay, well we'll take it off. Jeanette will take it off the air.
Okay.
Don't let her give one a plug and not give another
that's true,
plug.
Jack. The problem I have in that if it's not a good alarm system, they have all these false alarms. And then they wake up the whole community with a false burglar alarm in the middle of the night. And then you have the police there trying to find out if there's been a B&E, and it might have been the cat touching the window or something. So you have to spend the money to get something of quality.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yes, continuing on the owner's responsibility and awareness of things that they can do. For instance, no basement windows, board them all up, less glass available on the first floor so people can break in. And also, a dog. A dog will always bark at every sound.
But not a pit bull.
Not a pit bull. It doesn't have to be vicious. It just has to make a noise. And one very important thing, leave your lights on front and back, 24 hours a day, all the time.
And your radio. Or your television.
Whatever, but your lights on, and even a light on in the house near a doorway, whatever, just so that they don't know whether you're up or not. But lights front and back. I don't know why people keep turning their lights out. They don't save anything. Leave them on front and back.
Thank you, ma'am. That's obviously good common sense, isn't it?
Well, unless there's a thief listening and hears that and knows that...
Oh, no, they know that, but it becomes dicey for the thief. If he hears the television on, or the recording of a barking dog,
Jack,
or a dog...
How many residential homes have a front and back light on all night long? People just don't do that. That's out of the normal.
Well, maybe they should.
Well, maybe they should, but it doesn't happen.
I used to. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a question for Bonnie. She mentioned that Block Watch could be cancelled next week. Then she also mentioned that we should all join Blockwatch. Could she elaborate on if it is going to be cancelled, or is she sort of, politicking?
No, I'm not politicking. The Blockwatch grant come before council, Jack, and it's run by the RCMP. It has been tabled for further consideration because there is the limited funds in the grants budget.
How much is it?
30,000.
Chicken feed.
It is, really, compared to the good program that's there. It's in competition with another society right now, which I don't intend to name on the air. And I hope it's not cancelled. That's extremely important. If it's not funded by council, I hope they get a corporate sponsor or somebody, because there's your most effective tool for B&Es in Surrey. And if it's not funded, Jack, then I think I can get angry all over again later on this year.
We'll take a call from Prince George. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. With regards to 98% of the people putting in fraudulent claims, I don't believe that, not for a minute.
That with tongue-in-cheek was unfortunate.
Very much so.
Also, we had a couple of claims in 3 years. We paid out $1,600 in insurance and collected $800, and our insurance company canceled on us. Also, with regards to the RCMP, a skidoo was stolen from outside a residence, and 20 minutes later the RCMP were there. And when asked if they ever recovered anything like that, the answer was no. So I don't even know why they bother coming out to take a report.
That's true, Jack. They don't come out to take reports anymore on a lot of these BEs.
Well, there are a number of things. They stop responding to certain things, and everybody's overworked. The caseload is twice the Vancouver caseload for each particular officer. But at least we've had a good bash at the problem. The Insurance Bureau of Canada will apply its necessary deterrence on repeated claims, right? And you will keep up your battle to get the people of Surrey to pay more attention to locking their houses apart and everything else.
Your program will help us out there, believe it or not.
My thanks to you, Alderman Bonnie Schrenk from Surrey,
Jack.
and I'll probably get a phone call from Don Ross tomorrow for smearing the good name of Surrey, and my thanks to you too, Brian Stanhope, Regional Vice President.
That's me.
Of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. I'll be back after the break.
How about?
I've known Claire Culhane in all the years she's been in Vancouver, when she first came back from Vietnam, wasn't it? And sometimes I like her and sometimes I don't like her.
Well, when's the last time you introduced somebody as your favorite scapegoater?
I said bleeding heart.
Yeah, when did you introduce somebody as a scapegoater?
I haven't introduced anybody as a scapegoat.
I know, but you do introduce people as bleeding hearts.
Well, now you are a good, respectable bleeding heart who has been involved in every conceivable campaign for prisoners' rights.
And others as well.
And others as well. I remember well when I put you on there when you came back from Vietnam. But as I started out to say, I had Ingstrop Ole, or was it Ole Ingstrop?
Ole Ingstrop.
Of the Parole Board on the other day, and I was quite impressed with this guy.
You were.
And I think he's done a lot of good for the, he gives me a better feeling about the parole system and the protection of the public. And you promptly phoned me up and they're quite angry. Now, what was wrong with what Ingstrop Ole said to me?
You asked him a question. How come there's such a difference between his country, excuse me, where they have far shorter sentences, far fewer prisoners, and what we have here? And you weren't even zip enough to catch on that he didn't answer your question. He didn't tell you that one of the reasons is that prison there is for a last resort, not first resort.
You're talking about Denmark.
Yeah.
Well,
whereas here, let me finish, whereas here it's first resort. He didn't tell you that, what he did say was that we have a different perception of crime and violence, but that isn't the answer. The answer is they have maximum sentences of about 8 years, not 25 and 30. So therefore, it isn't a $5 billion industry in that country, and he didn't answer you that way.
$5 billion industry being our penitentiary criminal justice system, agreed.
Yeah.
But as you know, Canadians get very unhappy when you get people serving life terms for rapes and murders who are going to be let out on unescorted day passes. The public gets quite paranoid about it and says, get him back in again.
Right, but then the public doesn't look to see how often that happens as compared with the number of people that, as you know, are sitting in there innocent.
Or in another case, you'll get a guy who is going to be gated and it's freed by a judge, going to be gated because he had allegedly threatened his wife. You know the case I'm talking about. And then the appeal court made him eligible to go back to prison again. And the public says, good, if he threatened his wife when he was...
according to her.
According to her. Well, she's a person who's got to be concerned about it.
How about the case Senator Hastings revealed when he went to PA and helped about 15 of them appeal their gating and found out that one of them had been in minimum security, had been out on unescorted passes with no charges, and they gated him and put him into a maximum security and gated him even though he had a record of
Now,
that.
you're losing me on that. The point of gating is that when a prisoner is due to come out for whatever reason...
No, when he's done 2/3 of his sentence.
Mandatory supervision. If the parole board has doubts about his behaviour on the street when he comes out, they must, for the sake of public protection, hold a hearing, which they do, and keep him in if necessary.
But what is this based on? It's based on what Mr. Outerbridge himself admitted was absolutely impossible to predict future behavior. You know what it's based on? It's based on the sort of thing, here's an affidavit of somebody who spent 2 years inside because they mixed up his name with somebody else's name.
Well, that's a mistake.
Oh, but hang on. But these happen all the time.
Well, not all the time.
Well, enough. Anyway, we don't go the numbers game. It's just like the man you had on last night that said, so there may be 1 or 2 innocent that are hanged. We play the numbers game. You know, what if it's yourself? That wouldn't matter how many. So why say the numbers?
Oh, you're talking about the panel I had last night in Capital Punishment, where David Ricardo Williams seemed to indicate that one mistake now and again might not be. I don't know if I'm quoting him accurately. Whereas you, of course, are totally against capital punishment. I don't have to ask you.
Of course.
And you're totally against the most dangerous criminals spending life in prison.
But we're talking about other alternatives. But let's get to the capital punishment thing. Let me get a whack in at that. We talked about putting people away and hanging them, and we don't talk about the fact that the same people that are for law and order would not refer to the fact that Amnesty International is very much against capital punishment. We don't refer to the fact that people are hanged and would have been hanged for nothing. And let me give you another example, since we think it's so rare. There's somebody in prison right now who's doing 25 years, who is sitting next to another person. That person was shot 3 times. The 3rd bullet went through that person's chin and into this person's shoulder. And he's doing 25 years for killing him. And Mick Lowe right now is writing a book on that. So, you know, we can go on and on with giving examples. And you don't like that.
No, because I don't know the cases.
All right, but you're prepared to accept other people's fates. What about the teenager who hanged himself in Wellington? You don't consider that?
We've had many unhappy cases of suicide in the prisons and in the institutions, many of them indeed. But you would agree with me that conditions in Canadian prisons today, archaic though they may be in some aspects of how we treat prisoners, are a hell of a lot better than they were 20 years ago.
Well, I won't agree with that, because there's all kinds of abuse and torture. Let me give you another example.
Torture.
1 minute.
Torture.
Yes,
Torture.
I've seen a prisoner that came out of Archambault, where the Amnesty International did testify the torture went on.
How many years ago was that?
4.
Archambault was one of the most archaic prisons. You could talk about the Kingston.
It was, and it was built at the same time as Millhaven. But just a minute now. We're talking about conditions in prison. Yes, they're very good. We have an observation cell when a person is suspected of being suicidal. They're put in observation where they're watched so they won't commit suicide. Shall I show you what one prisoner made while he was being watched? While he was being watched.
How did you get it?
Someone gave it to me.
Because you're not allowed into the prison.
Oh, I am across country. It's only BC, and I've got court cases coming up on that.
Are you talking provincial prisons? Or?
Yeah. Let's talk about this. This is something a man made for himself while he was under observation. So who cares about it? You know, that's shocking, isn't it?
Well, I'll accept your circumstances as absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
But we came to talk about parole, and most people think that parole is reasonably well handled and a little bit too lax on some occasions.
Well, all right. Let's look at it from the angle that I want to give it to.
After the break.
All right.
Kind of lost the track with Claire Culhane tonight. Just tell me simply, what easements do you want in the parole system which we presently have?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I'm against the parole system altogether.
You don't want parole?
We should have short, flat sentences, and then put all the $38 million into places where we can help kids so they don't do break-ins.
But not all short. I mean, short sentences.
Well, even in Ole Ingstrup's country, the maximum is about 5 to 8 years.
For murder, too?
Yes, for murder, too. So they don't, you know, I mean, we don't have to make an
Well, I would
industry
agree
of it.
with you. There are many non-violent prisoners in our institutions who shouldn't be there for half the time they're in
But they
Fortress.
shouldn't be in at all, even.
But that's because of the judicial and the public attitudes in Canada.
But we have 37%, they give the figure, people are just in for bad debts or not paying debts or fines. We have debtors' prisons in this country.
Well, you don't go for jail for fines provincially, as I recall.
Oh, but I think they do. You check on it, and you find out how many women are doing, about, what is it, 35% of women doing from about 6 to 12 months. We need a prison system for that.
Far more Native Indians go to jail and stay in jail longer than other people, but
and we know why. But I mean, that was an insult when he said we have to set up an intensive study. We don't need any intensive study when we know that 90% of women in the prairie prisons are Native women. I mean, go and compare what a white and a non-white gets sentenced to in the first place.
I'll grant you a point on that, one way and another. Now I'm going to go to the phones. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening, Jack. I would just like to know, is our penal system for life, is it 25 years or what is it? Is it life or?
It's 25 years, sometimes with no possibility of parole, or with special judicial review, they sometimes get parole review at 15.
No. It's 25 minimum before parole eligibility. And at 15 years, they're supposed to get a review, all of them. But
well,
so far
what majority
it hasn't happened
usually
yet.
does get life? Is it the murderers or?
This is for anybody that's 25 years is first-degree murder.
Well, then what justifies life then?
Well, that is called life.
That is life?
Yeah.
What about down in the States? Isn't life till...
Oh, life can be 350 years down there, consecutive sentences of 100 years apiece. That's different altogether, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. I have two questions. I'd like to know how come all of the people that are on the liberal side of this subject are always giving us buzzwords like Amnesty International and these groups operating in Canada when they could better spend the money in Central America, South America, Africa. And I'd also like to know on what basis do you justify being against gating whenever you use an example of one person who was gated on very flimsy reasons, I admit, but what about gating armed robbers and murderers? I think that this is a protection of me and society.
Well, it's mostly sex offenders in the main, am I not correct, of whom they're concerned about the gating.
That is it. But then they don't finish the sentence and say that very little, if anything, is done to help them when they are in prison, so that when they do eventually come out, that we needn't fear again. So people try to position prisoners' rights being against victims' rights, which is absolutely wrong. I'm more concerned about victims because I'm more concerned about the future victims, which nobody seems to pay any attention to.
There comes a time when a man must come out, or a person must come out of prison regardless of their crime.
And this is what happened to Inge Klassen. Her own daughter was raped and killed by a man in prison who was telling people in therapy class what his problem was.
And he was allowed out.
And he was allowed out.
He should never have been allowed out.
All right, but he should have been given treatment that he was asking for.
Treatment or no treatment, he should never have been allowed out.
Well, unfortunately, the laws don't say that. You want to change the laws.
Yes, please, change it to that, and thank you very much.
Gating has been upheld by the Appeal Court of British Columbia.
But gating is only till they finish their sentence, and they come out then.
Well, at least that's another 3 or 4 years protection.
Or 2 to 3, but then what protection is if they're going to come out worse when they do? Well, nobody seems to care about that.
I know, but if there is a possibility of preventing an immediate crime by making a man serve his full sentence, he must serve it.
But then people are coming out all the time, so it's very short-sighted.
Well, our system is not perfect, I'll tell you.
For sure.
I used to know a lot more about it than I do now. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack. How are you?
Not bad.
That's good. I'm a correctional officer, and I've been a correctional officer for 11 years. And I know that the parole system is under a lot of turmoil right now. But the biggest discrepancy that I feel, and also on behalf of other correctional officers, is that when a prisoner or an inmate, however you want to class them, has been sentenced to, say, 3, 4, 5 years, which is a federal time, it's very easy for that prisoner to get good time. I mean, the prisoner, in most cases, doesn't have to work. They don't have to perform a function in prison. They could sleep their time through. And I know Claire's shaking her head, but I know this for a fact. It is very easy for a prisoner to earn good time. On a 5-year sentence, he does 2.5, 3 years, and he's up for parole, and all his reports in the prison are saying, oh, he's been good, no problem, very polite, courteous, so on and so forth. Bingo, he's up in front of parole, and he's out.
I should refer the gentleman to the parole review itself, which tells people that even if you have a 100% perfect institutional record, it does not guarantee your parole, because it may mean that you are so institutionalized that you won't be able to adjust when you come out.
There's a lot of people who are committing robberies, assaults, possessions of deadly weapons are getting 5, 7, 8 years, and they're out in less than half that time because they've been model prisoners, and that's a crock. You get sentenced to 5 years, you do your 5 years.
But you go and sit on parole hearings. I've been on parole board hearings.
I know. I've been involved in the parole too, Claire. I know. I know it's a burden on the taxpayers to keep these people.
With our mandatory supervision position, judges must say to themselves, I was going to give them 6 years, but it'll be out after 6, so I'll give them 9 years, and they'll get out after 6.
It's retroactive, this law, but the only law in the country that's retroactive. So it means a judge that did give you 10 years, so you'll do 5 years. Now that person is having to do that 10, whereas he would not have been given the full 10 if this Bill 67 wasn't
We have not removed the mandatory supervision process.
No, of course not, but we have now with Bill 67 made it possible to gate them. So what we've done is in midstream told a person that you've gotten your 10 years, so you'll do 5, and now you're going to do that whole 10.
That's if he's got crimes against him, quote, crimes against him in the prison.
No, only on the perception of a classification officer or anyone that chooses to build up his
Before we finish, let's agree on something, Claire.
Like what?
Well, you've done a lot of good work, you know, in your own way, annoying though you are at times. And you are certainly someone who prods the conscience of people like myself and those.
Oh, yeah, I know that line.
Well, don't you like me to say that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I said it. My thanks to Claire Culhane, who will keep battling as a prison rights advocate and will take the government to court to let her into the prisons in BC.
And let's get in and see for ourselves what's happening.
After the break. Tomorrow is BC Budget Day, and direct from Victoria tomorrow night I shall have Mel Cuvalier, Finance Minister of the Government, followed by, separately, Dave Stupich, the NDP critic, at 5 p.m. precisely.
Minister to announce in his speech tomorrow. Also tonight.